continue with section 6, titled Getting a Grip. The memorial service was on Saturday. Like I said, there was never any doubt that Mick had wanted to be cremated. He'd made up his mind about it last year when my great-grandmother Hart died. He and I weren't really that close to our grandmother. She'd been in a nursing home for most of our lives, and she was over 90 when she died. So I can't say that I grieved that much, or at all, actually. Mick was more upset than I was. As soon as she was gone, he started feeling guilty that he hadn't spent more time with her. I should have gotten you to take me out there more often, he told Pop. I could have taught her to play Pictionary or something. But even though Mick felt bad that she had died, the thought of going to her funeral gave him the creeps. The morning of the service, he told my father that great-grandmother had appeared to him in the bathroom mirror and told him she didn't want him to come. Pop put his hands on Mick's shoulder and said a bunch of stuff about looking life's difficult moments squarely in the face and coming out a better man. Then he gave Mick a hearty squeeze and said, in other words, go put on your suit. The funeral was at the chapel in the nursing home. The casket was open, so you could see the body. That's what they call you after you die, by the way. They call you the body. When Mick first saw it from the hall, he actually gasped. Oh God, she's there, he said. The next thing I knew, he was squatting down by the entrance, taking these real deep breaths like he had just run a marathon or something. Oh boy, he said. He was sweating like a pig. Pop tried to pick him up, but Mick stayed frozen in his squatted position, so my father was forced to set him back down. Don't make me go in there, Pop, he begged. I mean, I realize a lot of people are okay with this sort of thing, but I think it's pretty clear that I'm not handling this with the dignity we had both hoped for. My father told him to get a grip. The only way to conquer your fears is to face them head on, he said. Then he picked Mick up again and shook him a little bit till his legs unfolded. After that, he took him by the hand and led him inside. Big mistake. By then, Mick had worked himself into such a state of panic that when he saw the body up close in her curly wig and red hat, he became sort of mesmerized, you know. He couldn't take his eyes off of her. But it wasn't until he spotted the lace hanky in her hand that the pressure really got to him. I felt him tap me on the shoulder. Do you think she'll be blowing her nose anytime soon? He blurted. Then he busted out in this weird hysterical laughter that I knew he had no hope of controlling. My father snapped his fingers at him so loud you wouldn't believe. And since Mick couldn't quit laughing, Pop just kept snapping and snapping until it sounded like he was keeping time to the funeral music that was being piped in over the loudspeaker. Finally, my mother grabbed my father's hand to stop him and told Mick to please wait outside the ceremony until the ceremony was over. On the way home, my father started a lecture on humiliating your family in public. Mom told him to knock it off. This isn't Mick's fault, Ed. He told you he couldn't handle it, and you insisted on dragging him in there anyway. Then she rolled her eyes and added, and ye gods, that's snapping. It's kind of satisfying to hear your own father get yelled at, but Mick didn't gloat or anything. Instead, he made the announcement that when he died, he wanted to be recycled into a neat little pile of ashes and buried in a pleasant cemetery somewhere. It sounded pretty nice the way he put it and all. Mom said for her funeral, she wanted a big street parade like they have in New Orleans with the Dixieland Jazz Band playing and people strutting all over the place with umbrellas. Pop promised that that's exactly what he would do if she died first. Then, as soon as her back was turned, he made the cuckoo sign at her. Getting dressed for Mick's memorial service was awful. I mean, if ever there's a time when you shouldn't be caring what you look like, your brother's funeral is pretty much it. But still, in the back of your head, you just keep thinking about all those people who are going to be looking at you. People you haven't seen for years, probably. And the thing you know You're wearing a black velvet ribbon. The next thing you know, you're wearing a black velvet ribbon in your hair and trying to track down the right purse to go with your shoes. My parents and I drove to the church in total silence, and I sat in the back careful not to cross the imaginary line that had always divided the seat into Mick's side and my side. Mom was sitting right in front of me. I stared at the back of her head and wondered why I'd never noticed the strands of gray that were mixed in with her dark brown hair. Then suddenly it dawned on me that the reason I hadn't seen them before was because they had never been there before. And it made me feel so sick with sympathy. I reached out and touched her hair. As soon as so many mistakes. Sorry about that. When I get emotional, it's hard. As soon as my mother felt my fingers, she put her hand over mine. Then, with her other hand, she reached for Pop. And that's how we rode the rest of the way to the church. Connected like a family chain, sort of, with one link missing. It was crowded when we got there, but the front pew had been reserved for us. We were celebrities, and when we walked in the church still holding hands, the whole place got totally quiet. I kept telling myself, act natural, but the entire time I was saying in my head, it just stuck. It just struck me as wrong, that at a time like this I should have to work so hard to please others with my behavior. When the service finally started, I tried to concentrate on my prayers. And after that, the stories. That's mostly what the service was, stories about him. Our minister had suggested that people bring their favorite memories about Mick to the church, and whoever wanted could go to the microphone and share them. The school janitor went first. His name was Mr. Phineas. He and Mick had been friends since kindergarten. I think it was. He told about the time Mick got his head caught in the wrought iron railing in front of the main office. And Mr. Phineas got him out by smearing Crisco on his hair. People laughed, which sounded weird because you almost never hear people cracking up in church. It's kind of too bad when you think about it. I mean, I bet you anything God would rather hear laughing than all that crying and begging for forgiveness people dump on him every week. Mick's kindergarten teacher went to the microphone next. She told about the spring pageant when Mick broke away from the dance of the bumblebees and started spinning wildly all over the stage, doing a dance completely his own. After the show, when she asked him why he'd done it, he told her that the music got in his pants. There were lots of other stories too. Each one of them seemed funnier than the one before it. And when the last person sat down, I swear it was like the whole mood in the church had changed. There was just this kind of joy that I can't even explain. And I mean, it was so like Mick, to be able to make people laugh at his own service this way. I went last. I didn't want to go at all, but it seemed sort of right that somebody from our family should say a few words. And since neither of my parents thought they could handle it, I had told them I'd try. When I walked to the microphone, my heart was pounding so hard in my chest, I was sure I'd have some sort of attack before I got there. But once I'd made it to the front, I took a couple of deep breaths and got on with it. My mom wanted me to read you her favorite Mother's Day card from Mick, I said. I held it up from then for them to see. Then I told them about how Mick had been in 5th grade when he wrote it, and how he and my mother had been arguing all week about this one certain thing that Mick really wanted, but that Mom positively refused to let him have. On the Friday morning before Mother's Day, they'd had another battle, I said, and Mick left the house totally annoyed with her, except, as it turned out, that was the day they were making these cards in art. I smiled a little. Mick told the teacher that he wasn't in the right mood to make a card for his mom. Then the teacher told Mick to get in the mood or get an F. I held up the card and showed it again, slower this time so everyone could see the sloppy wad of lace glued to the paper and the word mop scribbled in pencil on the top. I opened the card and read it out loud. Roses are red, violets are blue. I still don't know why. I can't get a tattoo. Your son, Mick Hart. All right, I think we're gonna have to continue with the rest in our next video.